The sun was blazing over the turquoise waters of the Caribbean, where one of the most prestigious five-star resorts stood proudly, a playground for the wealthy, the famous, and the powerful. Guests were sipping cocktails by infinity pools, attendants rushed with trays of sparkling drinks, and the marble lobby gleamed with chandeliers. But behind the glossy brochures and curated Instagram feeds, there was a reality no one expected. And on that particular morning, an ordinary-looking man walked through the revolving glass doors, dragging an old suitcase that seemed out of place among the designer luggage. His shirt was wrinkled, his sneakers scuffed, and his demeanor humble. Nobody knew that he was actually the billionaire owner of the entire resort chain, disguised as a regular guest. His name was Daniel Weston, a man who had built his empire from scratch but was tired of staged presentations from his managers. He wanted the truth, the unfiltered, raw experience of what his guests actually endured. Daniel had checked in online under a fake name, intentionally booking a standard room instead of the luxurious suites reserved for VIPs. But the moment he stepped up to the reception desk, things began to unravel. The front desk clerk, a young man with slicked back hair, barely looked at him. "Yes," the clerk said coldly, as though Daniel was interrupting something more important. "I'm here to check in. Reservation under David Walker," Daniel replied calmly. The clerk typed slowly. "You'll have to wait. We're busy with more important guests right now." Without another word, he waved Daniel off to sit in the corner. For nearly an hour, Daniel sat watching how other guests, those who arrived in expensive suits, flashing black credit cards, were ushered in with smiles, champagne, and warm towels. When he approached again to ask if his room was ready, the clerk rolled his eyes. "You know what? We're fully booked," he said sharply. "You'll have to find another place. This resort is exclusive. Not for everyone." Daniel blinked. Not for everyone. He had poured hundreds of millions into making this resort a dream destination for everyone who could afford it. And now his staff was humiliating him in public. Before he could speak, two security guards appeared. One of them leaned in. "Sir, you're causing a disturbance. Please leave." The lobby grew silent. Guests turned their heads, some snickering, some whispering. Daniel's heart pounded. They were throwing him out of his own resort. Without resistance, he picked up his old suitcase and walked out. But the humiliation sparked a fire inside him. As he stood in the blazing sun, watching the glittering logo of his resort shine above the entrance, Daniel made a decision. In 20 minutes, everything would change. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his sleek black phone. One call was all it took. Within minutes, 3 black SUVs rolled up. Out stepped his executive assistant, his head of operations, and 2 members of the board. They knew the drill. Daniel had been planning surprise undercover inspections for months. When he walked back through the lobby doors with his team in tow, the same clerk who had sneered at him froze in place. His fake smile trembled as Daniel set down the old suitcase and pulled out a gold-embossed business card that read, "Daniel Weston, founder and CEO." Gasps rippled through the lobby. The security guards stepped back, suddenly pale. 20 minutes, Daniel said sternly, his voice cutting through the silence. "That's all the time I need to decide who stays, and who goes." What followed was chaos, and justice. Daniel gathered the entire front desk staff, the concierge, and even the head of security. One by one, he asked simple questions. How do you treat your guests? What does hospitality mean to you? Why do you work here? Some trembled, stammering excuses. The arrogant clerk broke down, insisting he was under pressure, but Daniel didn't buy it. The security guards muttered apologies, but it was too late. But then something unexpected happened. A maid, Maria, timidly stepped forward. She had been watching from a distance and finally spoke up. "Sir, not all of us treat guests like that," she said softly. "I've worked here 10 years. I love this place. I clean every room like it was my own home. But management doesn't care about us. They cut corners, ignore complaints, and tell us to look the other way. We try to keep the resort beautiful, but we're treated like we don't matter." Her voice cracked with emotion. Tears filled her eyes as she looked at him, not knowing she was speaking to the owner himself. Daniel felt a lump in his throat. "This is why I came undercover. Not to humiliate, but to uncover the truth." In front of everyone, he placed a hand on Maria's shoulder. You are exactly the kind of person this resort needs, he said firmly. From today forward, you're not just a maid, you're a supervisor. And I want you on the new training team. The lobby erupted in whispers. Then Daniel turned back to the arrogant clerk, the security guards, and a few others who had made guests' lives miserable. His voice was sharp now. You're fired. Effective immediately. You don't deserve to represent this resort. Within 20 minutes, the toxic employees were escorted out, the same way they had tried to escort him. The atmosphere shifted. Staff who had been silent finally stood taller, hopeful. Guests clapped quietly, some even recording the moment. But Daniel wasn't done. He gathered everyone, the staff who remained, from bellboys to bartenders, and gave them a promise. This resort is meant to be a paradise, not just for the wealthy, but for anyone who comes here expecting respect and kindness. We will rebuild, retrain, and restore what hospitality truly means. And it starts today. Together. Tears glistened in Maria's eyes. Other staff members nodded, relief flooding their faces. For the first time in years, they felt heard. And so, in less than an hour, the resort had transformed. Not by new chandeliers or pools, but by one man's decision to stand up for what mattered: dignity, respect, and integrity. Daniel Weston had entered the resort as a nobody, humiliated and dismissed. But he left that day as a leader who proved that true power isn't in wealth or status, it's in how you treat people. And that was the message that echoed through the resort long after he left. Hospitality isn't about luxury, it's about humanity.